Are you interested in the cost of a house in Cuba? Can a foreigner buy a house in Cuba? Can an ordinary Cuban with their salary buy a house in Cuba? What is the issue of buying and selling houses like? Did you know it was prohibited for many years? In this video, I'll give you the answer. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to my channel. In case you don't know me, my name is Anita. I'm Cuban, currently living in Cuba, and this channel is about Cuban reality, about many curiosities and doubts about life in Cuba that perhaps you in your countries do not know. Because Cuba is a country that is not very well known. Well, lately it is known because we now have internet, but a few years ago nothing was known about how we Cubans lived. More or less, according to you, you tell me that you had no idea. This channel is responsible for informing you more about this reality. I quietly invite you to subscribe here on a little red button called subscribe. It's totally free. I'll wait a moment. Please subscribe, okay? Also feel free to like this video now because it's a video that people have been asking me about constantly in the YouTube comments. When I'm reviewing them, there's this question, there's this question, there's this question. I researched for several weeks reading on the internet because I didn't know many of these things myself. As you can see from the title, I work for YouTube, but in this video, I'll explore what I would do if I didn't work there. If I were an ordinary engineer, could I buy a house with my salary here in Cuba? So, well, I'm going to be answering all those questions, so stay tuned because this video is going to be interesting. In case you didn't know, a few years ago, the buying and selling of houses in Cuba was prohibited. It was done clandestinely because it was legally forbidden. For more than 50 years, the buying and selling of homes in Cuba was illegal. What did Cubans do at that time? Well, during all this time, it was a social, economic, and bureaucratic odyssey in Cuba, where the options were to access a house that was limited to exchanges, inheritances, getting a state construction permit on a plot of land, or resorting to the illegal market. A few years ago, these prohibitions were lifted and the legal buying and selling began. One of the questions is, who can buy a house in Cuba? In Cuba, there are no mortgages and bank transfers are residual. And not just anyone can buy a house. Only Cubans who are residents on the island or Cubans who live abroad but have their residence on the island and are authorized can buy it. Or likewise, foreigners who have a permanent residence on the island. Can a foreigner buy a house in Cuba? Well, this is one of the questions I get asked the most. I don't know why they are so interested in having a house in Cuba. Perhaps they see Cuba as a beautiful place and such, but honestly, from my opinion, I don't recommend that they buy. Well, maybe yes, if you want to buy a house in Cuba, you do whatever you want, but while living here in Cuba, the house is in trouble. So well, since you asked me and you want to know, I'm going to answer you. There is still not a truly open market for non-residents. The law states that only a Cuban or a foreigner who has permanent residence on the island can buy a house and put it in their name in the property registry. Now, I've been researching to see if this was the case in Cuba or in other countries as well. And I mean, in other countries, I researched Spain and the United States, which are the countries that we Cubans like the most. Do you know Chuchu to leave? It turns out that in the United States, a foreigner can buy a house here. It says on the internet. How can you buy a house in the United States? Well, you will have to acquire the visa, of course, a visa to be in the United States. It doesn't matter if it's a resident or tourist type. The important thing is to be able to enter the country with the necessary documentation. The second step, and it's one of the most important, is to have the money to buy a property. In other countries like the United States, foreigners can purchase houses. And well, in Spain, the only requirement they ask for in Spain, for example, to acquire a home, is to have a foreigner identification number. That is a foreigner identification number, which is a personal and unique number essential to carry out any transaction in the country. From opening a business to buying a property, that's the example in other countries because I researched to find out if in other countries a foreigner can buy a house. But well, here in Cuba, you have to have a permanent residence. How do you get a permanent residence? Well, I don't know. Look it up on the internet now. How many houses can a person have in Cuba? In Cuba, a person of any age can own only one home, and have, if they can, another home, but in a rest area. That is, in the same city or in a city, a person cannot have two houses. For example, a person cannot have a house here in Matanzas and another in Havana. To be an owner, it must be in a rest area, possibly in the countryside. I'm not sure, in a region that remote from the city. What are the procedures to buy a house here in Cuba? To acquire property in Cuba, 3 documents are required, including the deed of sale, the current ownership certificate, because it states where the property was previously registered, and the appraisal roll of internal tax services. I have no idea what that is, but well, it says so on the internet. Now, the ways to acquire. Before it was totally forbidden, I already explained to you. And did the barter or inheritance work? Or because the owner died and you inherited this house? Housing is acquired today through buying and selling, as previously mentioned, because you inherited the house from your father when he passed away. Obviously, it's left to the children. If you have many children, it seems like it's left to all the children in equal parts. They have to, agree. Many families here fight and such over the houses. Or unless the father, the owner, has made a will and says no, who does he want to leave the house to? The other is the exchange. That's good. I don't know if in other countries there's this thing of exchanging houses. I mean, it's the change of one house for another. Many people with big houses exchange them for 2 small houses, so that works a lot here in Cuba. There are people who want to exchange, for example, from Matanzas to Havana. They give you the house with additional money because obviously a house in Havana must cost more, I suppose. Here I am reading on the internet that the exchange was implemented in the 70s in Spain as a result of the boom in the construction of buildings. A very important question: how much does a house in Cuba cost? This is Rebolica. It's like saying the Amazon of Cuba. Here you can find everything. You go to the page rebolico.com and several sections will come out depending on what you're looking for. If you go to the housing section, as I'm showing you here, you can search in the area you want where you want to buy your home. I mean, where are the offers, the prices and such? People here post their ads. I suppose they have to pay to post an ad on Rebolico. If you can see, here are some prices for some houses. I searched this in Havana, which is the capital of Cuba. The price of the houses depends a lot on the area where it is located, on the province. Of course, the conditions that the house has, how it is built. There are many people who leave the houses with things inside, with equipment and such, because many people know that they are selling their houses to immigrate, to leave the country, and there are people who leave it with everything inside. That also increases its value. I say that there is no such thing as a fixed price currently for how much a house costs. Each one sets the price. I don't know what more or less is on the market for houses similar to this one. Also to tell you that many people set a price, a value, the value that their house has. And when they see that it doesn't sell, they keep lowering it. They keep lowering it. They keep lowering this value to see if they can sell it faster. I've met many people with houses who have had to greatly reduce their value, which is horrible because it doesn't sell. Because right now there are many houses for sale here in Cuba. You can see it in the videos how they put up signs outside of houses for sale. But while doing a little research, I looked on the internet, what is the average price of a house in Cuba according to a journalist there. I don't know if this is real or not. But well, the average comes up on the internet. This journalist analyzed more than 100,000 classifieds on Rebolico. On this page, Rebolico, which is like the Cuban Amazon. He investigated over 100,000 house sales, it seems, and concluded that a house in Cuba has an average cost today of approximately $36,000. Now, what is the reality of the young people? Let's say they study at the university, because anywhere in the world, a university person, an engineer, a graduate is supposed to have a good salary and can afford a house. Perhaps not in all countries, but well, in general. So what is the reality for us young people? Here in Cuba, if I were an engineer, my salary would be, as I've mentioned before, what is the average salary of a Cuban? 3,000 and some pesos. That currently doesn't even reach $40. You see, the dollar goes up and down, So, is the dollar currently going down compared to the Cuban peso? I don't know why. As an engineer, I've told you what I would charge, not what I actually charge, understand? I work on YouTube, but if I were an engineer, I would charge approximately per month. Many people ask me if that is a monthly salary. Yes, a professional's monthly salary sometimes doesn't even reach $40. At most, there might be some professionals whose salary does reach, I don't know, $40 or $50. Like on average, comparing the Cuban peso with the dollar, but well, basically it's per month. They don't reach $40. Can you see house prices in Cuba? That you can find a simple, modest house for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So imagine for a Cuban, a professional who earns $40 a month and everything goes away. Almost everything goes toward food because it is extremely expensive. It's impossible for us young people to buy a house. That's the reality. I have a friend who has a house, but that's because her dad sold his car to buy her the house. But that's how it is. You need help from your family. They send you money, but you working honestly or however you can. Buying a house is nearly impossible for young people without assistance. What can we do? Live in rented places when we want to become independent, and well, see what we do next. Purchasing a home is not the objective. Even people who have worked for years and years don't have a house. Well, basically, I hope I've answered some of your little questions. Many people ask me that question, and it's not a lie. They ask me a lot. They want to know, how much does a house cost in Cuba? Can a foreigner buy a house in Cuba? I don't know why, because things are heated, but well, you guys want to know. I told you, don't leave, because I'm going to be sharing a little more of what the rest of my day will be like. Since many of you like me to share things like what a subscriber wrote to me, and she told me that I wasn't making recipes anymore, like, cooking what I eat and that I used to do before. I used to have a beautiful kitchen, but now it's small and dark. Anyway, let me share more about the rest of my day with you. Here in Cuba, we must use electricity efficiently due to frequent power outages. Now you're aware. Today I made a little rice. I made a chicken in sauce to which I added tomato puree, garlic, onion, and other powders and seasonings to give it flavor and salt. Yes, I made it in the pressure cooker. We are still in the avocado season, but the avocado is about to end and the tomato begins. So well, here I have a little avocado, a plantain. We say here I'm going to make some fried plantains that I love. They are delicious. In Cuba, we often dice avocados into small cubes, add salt, and enjoy them as a salad. And we chop the banana this way to make it fried, which is a delight. Here you see the result of the fried banana. I like it to be a little burnt like this because I don't know, I like it more this way than half raw. And well, this is today's little meal. I also had some beans made that just needed to be heated up. And well, I say goodbye here calmly, eating, having dinner, and I send you a big kiss. Remember that every Friday there's a new video. I'll be waiting for you. Subscribe.